What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of 90 Day the Other Way, Season 7, Episode 14, Gutted. Let's get into Dylan and Patia. So before we go too deep into them, I just want to say this. I think that Dylan resents Patia. There's something about Patia that he really resents. And his mother knows this because he's confided in his mother. And his mother reinforces whatever resentment he has towards Patia. I'm not saying that it's not justified. It could be very much justified. There are some things with Patia that I find a little bit unsettling. So it's probably very much justified, whatever he's feeling towards Patia, but I think he does resent her in some way. I don't know if it's because of her mismanagement of money and the debt that she's in. I don't know if it's how she treats him, how she treats his mother. I don't know what it is exactly. It could be all of the above, but he heavily resents Patia. And I think that's why it is so easy for him to not set boundaries with his mother. And I'm not saying that boundaries are needed or not needed, but I think it's easy for him to not set boundaries for his mother and to not push his mother away because I think he resents Patia. So we'll get more into it as we go along. So it starts off with Patia and Dylan's mom, Joe, playing tennis. Dylan's mom had invited her out for a game of tennis. So they played the tennis. And I think Dylan's mom won the game. After that, they sit down and they have a conversation. What I find kind of jarring about Patia is that she's very open and vocal and comfortable with her dislike towards Dylan's mom. And I don't care what issues you have with your partner's mother, to be very outward and outspoken about the fact that you dislike them and you're not afraid to show that you dislike them. I think that that's very disrespectful. Unless this person is doing something extremely egregious, like abusing children or out here killing people or something. I just don't think that you should be that outspoken about your dislike towards your partner's parent. Okay, even if they are okay, I just don't believe in that. I think you should still be civil with them, and you should still show them some type of respect, as long as some type of respect is given to you as well. I don't care because the issues that she has with Dylan's mom, I don't think warrant her being so open and vocal and expressive of her dislike towards his mother. I think the mother, I don't know if the mother is doing this for the camera or this is how she actually is, but I think the mother is more civil and respectful towards Patia than the other way around. So that's a very, their relationship is very interesting to me because just the fact that, and another issue is that Dylan, I think Dylan does tell, you know what? Let me backtrack even more. This is just not even starting off the way I wanted it to start off. Okay. Dylan has every right to confide in his mother with whatever the hell he wants to confide in his mother in. If he wants to talk to his mother of all the things he cannot stand about Patia from sunup to sundown, he has the right to do that. What I have an issue with is the mother letting Patia know that Dylan is confiding in her. I think that when Dylan is confiding in her, I don't know if he's wanting his mother to let Patia know what his concerns are, and he's using his mother as a way to convey how he really feels about certain things directly to Patia, like he's using his mother as a conduit or as the messenger to get his message across to Patia. I don't know if that's what he's trying to do, but if he's not trying to do that, I don't think that the mother should be telling Patia, well, yeah, Dylan told me this and Dylan told me that. Because when they sat down to talk, Patia started off by saying that she wanted to talk about some issues that she's having with Joe, and Joe said that, well, I heard. Or first, she said, well, I don't have any. Patia started off by saying, I want to talk about, the fact that we don't like each other, or something like that. And Joe said, well, I don't have an issue with you. You're the one with the issue with me. You don't like me. I like you, and I have no issues with you. And then she goes on to say that Dylan told her that Patia had said once she moved to Australia, she did not want to live anywhere near Dylan's mother or Dylan's father. This is what Dylan told his mom, which is fine. You can tell your mom whatever the hell you want to tell your mom. But I kind of felt it was sort of like it makes Joe look passive aggressive. Because Patia starts off with, well, we have issues and I want to address those issues. And then she's like, well, I don't have any issues with you, but this is what my son told me. You didn't want to live anywhere near us. And she's kind of like throwing it back at Patia that she's just being passive aggressive. That's all it is. She's just being very passive aggressive. She's like, I have no issues with you. I love you. The sun rises and sets around you, Patia, but my son did tell me that you didn't want to live anywhere near us. And Patia was like, yes, I did. That's how I feel. And that's what I told Dylan. And then the mother brings up Patia's debt. And she says, well, the only issue that I have with you, Patia, is all the debt that you're in. And Patia says, well, I'm in debt because of Dylan. Because of me moving to Australia, me moving to Thailand. So I'm in debt because of Dylan. And then the mother is like, oh, so once again, you're blaming Dylan. You're blaming Dylan for everything. And then they talk about the properties that Dylan owns and Patia's expectation for Dylan to sell one of his properties to help her pay her debt. And the mom was like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think Dylan should be doing that. So now Patia is worried that the mother's going to influence Dylan into not selling one of his properties to help her with her debt. But I don't think, and I don't know if Dylan promised Patia that he would actually do that. I know that was a conversation that they had. And from my recollection, he wasn't really gung-ho about it. He wasn't like, hell yeah, I'm going to sell one of my properties to help you with your debt. The conversation did not go like that. It seemed like he was trying to resist. He wants her to get out of debt on her own because he believes that he had nothing to do with putting her in debt. So why should he help her get out of debt? So they talk about that. So now Patia is kind of worried that the mother might influence Dylan into not selling one of his properties to help her out. She believes that he owes her to do this to help her because, like I said, she thinks that he put her in debt. So the mom, Patia talks about that. Another issue that she has is that they talk on the phone so much. They talk on the phone 3 times a day. And she even goes as far as to say that Joe is a needy mother. And I was like, okay, Patia, now you're kind of crossing the line. Now you're kind of crossing the line. You're in your grown woman-ish by telling your mother-in-law or your soon-to-be mother-in-law all the issues that you have, whatever. But now for you to say, you calling her needy, that's extremely unacceptable because to me, a needy mother would be a mother that is really, truly pulling her son away from his significant other. Like every day, he's got to go to his mother's house to fix a light bulb, to help her find whatever she lost that day, to help her feed the dog, to help her do this, to help her do that. Every day he's at his mother's house for hours at a time, helping her around the house. To me, that's like a needy mother for whatever reason, or she's going through some type of, she's not having a great day. She's feeling kind of down in the dumps. And every day he has to be at his mother's house to cheer her up, or she's feeling lonely. And every day he has to be at his mother's house to keep her company. That to me is a needy mother. The fact that they talk so often during the day, I don't see that as being very needy. Maybe because of the fact that I talk to my mom several times throughout the day. Me and my mom talk more than 3 times a day, every day. We be yapping away. Now, if it's getting in the way of my home life, my family life, my relationship, of course I'm going to scale back. But I would like to know exactly how long do Dylan and his mom talk on the phone at any given time? That's what I would like to know. So they talk on the phone 3 times a day. Now, is it for 3 hours each time? Is it 2 to 3 hours each time? Is it in the middle of dinner with Patia? The mother calls and all of a sudden he gets up, he walks out and he's on the phone with her for the next 3 hours. They're in the middle of a movie. The mother calls, he's on the phone with her for 3 hours. How long are they talking per call? Because I don't know if Patia has a point or not. I don't know if it's worth defending or not, the fact that he talks to his mom 3 times a day. Is it 3 times a day and only about 10 minutes each call? Or is it 3 times a day, 3 hours for each call? No one ever really said. So when she said to Joe that you are a needy mother and that, you talk to your son way too often, the mother says, okay, well, I'll stop calling. I'll stop calling and we'll see how well your relationship works out. In other words, mom is telling Patia, baby, I'm the least of your problems in your relationship with Dylan. I'll back off. I'll stop calling and we'll see how well your relationship goes after that. Dylan later on comes to pick up Patia from the tennis court. Patia, so he picks her up. They're on their way home now. They're in the car. They're driving home. And Patia tells him that she had told his mother that she should only call Dylan twice a week instead of 3 times a day. And of course, he didn't like that. She said that he should be okay with that because it bothers her so much. And then Dylan was like, but it shouldn't bother you that much that I talk to my mom so often. And he even goes as far as to say, like, well, what if my mom died? How are you going to feel about yourself telling me that I need to cut back on how often I communicate with my mom? What if she dies? And Patia's like, oh, she's not gonna die. She plays tennis every day. She's not gonna die. So once again, Patia, I'm gonna have to check you on that because as our parents get older, the time that we have left with them is extremely precious. Okay, like I said, Dylan should not be on the phone with his mom 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours a day. That's ridiculous. If it's a couple of minutes per call, no biggie. But the fact that he wants to cherish this time with his mom and talk to her and give her, some of his time. I don't care if she is in the Olympics. Okay, I don't care if she's competing for the Olympics. She's still an elderly woman. She's not going to live for another 100, 150 years. She is still an elderly woman. She's pushing 70, according to Dylan. She's pushing 70. So maybe he said that as a manipulative tactic to put her in her place, but it's still the reality. And the fact is, she is an elderly woman. He doesn't know how much time he has with her. And she should not be limiting how often he talks to his mother. Like I said last week, I'm a fan of true crime. You never know when someone's going to be snatched from you. You never know when someone will no longer be here anymore because a life can end in a second, right? So I will give the people that I love my time and attention because you just never know what's going to happen within the next day, the next hour, the next 5 minutes. And you don't want to be the person who has to live with guilt because you didn't take that call when you could have taken the call, but you're like, oh, I don't really feel like talking to her right now. And you don't take the call and then you get bad news later. Now, if you're doing something important, I understand sometimes you're just not in the mood. I understand sometimes you're busy. But to purposely try to limit someone on how often they talk to their parent, I don't think that's her place to do that. Either she's going to accept it or she's just going to have to move on. Now, if Dylan is not the type of person who wants to change his ways for her, then that should give her a clue on what she needs to do, right? If it's bothering her so much, regardless if they're talking for 1 minute per call or if they're talking 1 hour per call, if it's bothering her so much and he's not someone who would change his ways to appease her, then that should tell her what she needs to do. Patia, you either have to accept it or you just got to move on. But he's not going to change how he relates to his mother. That's just not going to change. Dylan tells Patia that, no, Dylan tells us in his confessional that Patia is not close with her own mother, so she doesn't understand his relationship with his mom. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. That probably has a lot to do with it. Because she's not close with her own, she doesn't get what's going on between Dylan and Joe. To her, this is absolutely foreign to her. She's absolutely clueless on how an adult child would want to communicate with their parent as much as Dylan does with his mom. To her, this is something that is just a concept that she cannot understand. So I was like, okay, that's a really good point, Dylan. That's a very good point. Dylan feels like Patia is worried that Joe will influence him against her. Ding, 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 ding. Yes, I agree. I totally agree. Patia has put herself in competition with her mom, with his mom. I don't know if it's because of Dylan, because Dylan, he was up to some shenanigans. back in the day when he would tell Patia that my mom doesn't want me to be with you because you can't have children. And I don't know if it's true or not, if that's how Joe really felt, because Dylan and his mom, they seem like the mother and son team that can be in cahoots with one another against a common enemy, right? Like to they will join forces against a common enemy. And maybe Joe really did say that to Dylan. Hey, I don't know about this. I don't know about you being with a woman so much older who can't give you children. And then he went ahead and he relayed that to Patia. And now Patia resents her soon to be mother-in-law or whatever she is. So I don't know if, you know, her having this fear that Joe is influencing Dylan, if it's legit or not, because I don't know if the mom had really sown the seeds in the very beginning to try to turn Dylan against Patia with that whole baby comment. So so he tells her, he tells us that, or maybe he told her. No, I think he told us in his confessional. Yeah, I think she's just really worried about my mother influencing me against her, which I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. Then Dylan went straight for the jugular. He says to Patia, instead of you worrying about how many times I talked to my mom, why don't you worry about getting out of your $20,000 debt? And I was like, oh my God, gloves are off. Gloves are off. I could not believe that Dylan said that to her because, yeah, it's true. Technically, she should be worried about getting out of debt more than how many times Dylan talks to his mom. So that's technically true. But still, yeah. But she kept going. That didn't stop her. So she says, well, you're the one that got me into debt. And then Dylan says, well, you blame me for everything. So she calls Dylan controlling. And he said, between the two of us, you're the most controlling of all. He says, that's why you don't want me talking to my mother, because whenever I speak to her, you feel like she's taking that control away from you. Now we're getting into the root of the issue. It is a serious competition between Patia and Joe for Dylan. They're both fighting for Dylan. I don't think Joe's really fighting. I think Patia is the one that's fighting. She feels like she's in competition with Joe, with Dylan's time, attention, mind, how he feels, how he thinks. Patia has put her own self in that position to compete with Joe. Joe's just chilling in the cut. She's just like, me and my son are great. We have a great relationship. We're close. We're fine. Patia is the one that's struggling. Patia is the one that's having all of these issues. And Patia, you're going to have to get used to it, or you're going to have to move on, because it's not going to change. So when he said that to her, that, you are in fear of losing that control over me to my mother, Patia was kind of dumbfounded when he said that, but she kept going. So Dylan tells her that his relationship with his mother is not going to change. He tells her that, and it won't, because his mom is his biggest cheerleader, because there's something about Patia that he heavily, heavily resents. And whatever his issue is with Patia, when he goes to tell his mother about it, his mother is in agreement with him. His mother justifies whatever he's feeling towards Patia. So Patia already messed up. She's already messed it up by being so aggravated and so angry with how close he is with his mother. She's already messed that up. She can't take that back. So I don't know how they're going to navigate through this. I really don't know how it's going to work out. Because Patia seems very stubborn, and I don't think Patia is going to change. And I know that Joe is not going to change, and I know that Dylan isn't going to change. So I don't know who's going to end up having to bow down in order for all three of these people to move forward. Let's talk about Greta and Matthew. So Greta has just told Matt that she didn't love him anymore. This is over the shepherd's pie dinner. And after she told him this, he tells her, thank you for being so honest. Now, keep in mind that all this is going on, but Greta has only been in the UK for 3 or 4 days. It feels like she's been there 3 months, but she's only been there 3 or 4 days, and all of this has happened. And so he tells her that what they need is time, that they haven't spent enough time together. And so he begs her to give them a chance and to allow them more time to fix whatever they need to fix in their relationship. And she is like, no. And then he tells her that, things would be different if production wasn't here. Because maybe the fact that there's cameras here in our face all the time, maybe this is affecting our relationship. And she tells him it's got nothing to do with production. Her feelings still stand, and she's not going to change her mind. It's not going to make any difference at all whether production is there or not. It's not going to make any difference if she stays there for another 6 months, another 6 years. Her feelings are what they are, and she is not going to back down. She then very slowly takes off her engagement ring and places it back in his hand. And I'm thinking, okay, Matt, this is the sign. This is the sign. She took off the ring and she gave it back to you. She is done. She's done. Don't beg. Don't ask. Just keep it pushing. She doesn't want to be with you. Maybe it's for right now. Maybe it's forever. But for right now, you need to move on and don't beg her to reconsider. Don't have any more conversations with her about needing more time together. Let it go. She's already given you back the ring. It's over. So Greta tells him that this could be a mistake. She could be making a mistake and breaking up with him. It could be the worst mistake of her life. But she says it's the mistake that needs to be done. And I've never heard that before, but those words carried so much weight. And I hope that Matthew was paying attention and listening. She says to him, it's probably a mistake what I'm doing, but it is a mistake that it needs to be had. Basically saying, I could be making a mistake, but I don't give a damn. I just really want to get away from you. So she gets up, she leaves the table, and she goes into their room and she starts packing up her suitcase because she is planning to go stay at a motel, at least for the night. Maybe until she gets the hell out of Dodge. Greta is serious. She is serious as a heart attack. And I hope that he's paying attention. I hope to God that he does not try to beg her to come back, beg her to stay, beg her to reconsider. It's over, Matthew. It may be over just for now. Whatever the situation is, it's definitely over. Moving on to Chloe and Johnny. So they go meet with an immigration attorney, and the lawyer gives them two options because they're trying to figure out what needs to be done for Chloe to get her work permit so she can start working, and etc. So in order to get the work permit, she has to have some type of legal status. And to obtain the legal status, they have two options. They can file for a domestic partnership, which is going to take about 6 to 8 months. And it's going to cost about, I think, did they say $6,000? No, not 6,000. I'm sorry, $700. I think this was going to cost about $700. And plus, Chloe would have to leave Aruba, go back to the United States, stay there for a certain amount of time, and then come back and then re-enter the country of Aruba again. Chloe doesn't want to do that because she feels like as soon as she's out of sight, she will be out of mind and that Johnny will go and cheat on her. So she doesn't want to leave him at all. She feels like she has to be right up there under him in order to keep him from cheating. So that's not an option for her. The other option is for them to get married. It's going to be a lot cheaper because they only have to pay for the cost of filing a marriage license, I guess. And Chloe would not have to leave Aruba. She can stay in Aruba, and it is a much faster process. So they listen to what the lawyer has to say. They're going to think about it. They leave. They go out to eat. And over dinner, they talk about what the lawyer had told them. So Johnny says that, while we're waiting for your work permit to come through, I don't have a problem, taking care of you. What I cannot afford to take care of is your expensive lifestyle. So going out to eat every night, drinks every night, partying every night, yeah, I can't do that. But if you're willing to scale back, then we'll be just fine while we're waiting for your work permit to come through. So then she asks him if he's ready to get married. And he says, well, I'm at that age now where I do want to settle down. She didn't like that. She says, well, it's got nothing to do with age. It's got everything to do with how you feel about me. I think it has a lot to do with age, to tell you the truth. I don't think he was wrong for saying that. I know for her, she wants to hear something very romantic. Like, of course, I'm ready to get married to you, Chloe. You're my everything. I love you so much. You're the only one that I want to marry. I know that's what she wants to hear, but he can have all the feelings for her, but not be at that stage yet in his life to settle down and to commit to her and her only, regardless of how he feels. So he might have very strong feelings for her and want to be with her and love her, but he may not be ready to commit. Whether it's because he still wants to explore other women or not, he may not be at that point where he's ready to settle down. Now, he's telling her, I'm at that age now where I guess he's sick and tired of the running around, the partying, whatever. He's done with that. He wants a quiet, peaceful life. He's ready to settle down. And obviously, he wants to settle down with her. So he asks her if she's ready for that type of commitment. Is she ready to give up her party girl lifestyle? And Chloe's like, if I moved here, if I left my whole entire life behind in Boston and I came here to start new with you, that should tell you that I am ready to settle down. And he's like, well, I don't know if you can give up, your party lifestyle. And she's like, if I'm telling you I'm ready, then I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to settle down. So they're both trying to convince the other that they're ready to settle down. Are they? Who the hell knows? I don't know. I don't know if they are or if they aren't. I really don't know. Only time will tell. I just want to know, which route are they going to take? Are they going to fall for the domestic partnership, or are they going to fall for an actual marriage license? I know that when Chloe has to tell her mom, if they do decide to go the marriage route, if she has to tell her mom that, her mom is probably going to be on the first plane back to Aruba to try to convince her to not marry Johnny. Moving on to Mano and Anthony. So Anthony is trying once again to romance Mano. He talks about how they haven't had any like private couple quality time together. The baby's always with them. The family's always around them. So they haven't had any alone time. And so he wants to take her out for the night at a hotel for them to have a little bit of time together, just the two of them. So on their way to the hotel, they get into an argument about an argument they had earlier that day. So earlier in the day, they were at a boutique and Mano wanted to buy some type of jewelry. And Anthony was like, oh, I don't have my wallet with me. Later on, he flashes his wallet to her, as in, I had my wallet with me the whole entire time. I just didn't want you to spend money, because we're trying to save money, not spend money. So Mano had gotten upset with him and was like, I wasn't going to buy up the whole boutique. I was only going to buy like a couple of pairs of earrings. And if you didn't want me to buy anything, you should have just said it. Instead of lying about not having your wallet with you and then flashing it to me afterwards, you could have just said, Mano, don't get the jewelry. Mano, instead of 2 pairs, just get 1 pair or something. That's all you had to do. And I have to agree with Mano on that. He was like, well, if I would have said to you, don't do this or don't do that, you wouldn't have listened. So he had to take a more creative route. I prefer honesty. If I prefer honesty, then you can use it against me later. You can say, well, I tried to tell you no that one time at the boutique and you still argued with me. But I prefer honesty. Don't play these games telling me you don't have your wallet and then flash it in my face once we leave the boutique. Please don't do that. But whatever. So they got into an argument about that. So on their way to the hotel, they argue about that argument. And so they're going back and forth. Don't really remember what they said, who said what, but they were just arguing about their earlier argument. And Anthony is trying to diffuse the situation, but Mano wants to keep going and going and going. And I'm thinking to myself, how is this going to end up being a romantic night if they're already arguing like this? They get to the hotel, and as soon as they enter the room, Mano is looking around, and she's like, what the F is this? Because it's a hotel, but it looks like a cheesy pay by the hour motel. That's how it looks. It's like a love room or whatever they want to call it. And it's got like a stripper pole in there. It's got these, the Miami Vice 1980s neon colors everywhere. To me, it was tacky, but it was done well in a tacky way. It was so tacky, but it was like, if you're going to do tacky well, I guess this was the way. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't done well. So, Anthony puts on, he tells her that I'll have another surprise for you. And she's like, oh my God, I don't know if my heart can take it. So he goes into the back room, he comes back out, and he's changed into his army uniform because Mano loves his army uniform. She loves him in a uniform. So he puts on his army uniform, and then he gives her a little show on the stripper pole. And then after that, they go into the jacuzzi, and it ended up being romantic. So when he was stripping for her, this was the first time in a long time that I had seen Mano smile and laugh and enjoy herself. I didn't even recognize this woman because every time we've seen Mano, she's always angry. This is the first time that I actually see her kind of relax a little bit and have a good time. And thank God it was because of Anthony. Thank God she was having a good time because of her own husband, because she's been, biting his head off the whole entire season. So it ended on a really good note, and I don't know how Anthony did it, but he was able to romance Mano. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video. If you like this content, subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.